And we are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the Whitfield Report. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, broadcasting live from NGC Studios here in southern Florida. Welcome, welcome. And good evening, Bears. Folks, I'm sorry for the delay. I was supposed to start this show an hour ago. But I had to do some computer updates, and yes, even Macs need to do updates, and this one took a bit longer than I thought it would to update everything. So once again, I apologize, and but I'm live now officially, so hopefully some of you guys can make it in here that are Bears. So anyway, let me post the link to the live stream real quick, because I think that will be probably be the best bet for you guys getting in here. And we already have some people watching on the chat, and so let me check that real quick while I'm just sending it on the Discord. And okay, it's okay. Alright, so now everyone should have the link to the show. So welcome once again to the Whitfield Report, and let me read off the chat here. Let me get rid of a few of these windows first and foremost. And let's see, who do we have? Dax is here, and Kimmy is here. So is Weasel, and Dax, by the way, for those of you watching, is the one who created this beautiful lower third graphic for me, which contains all of my social media information. And so I'm pretty generous with wrenches for moderators on my channel. But just for the heck of it, I'm going to be extra generous and just say, Dax, you get a wrench. And Weasel, you already have a wrench. So I wrench bears on a pretty regular basis, unless your name is Erwin Bungeman, who is, as we all know by now, the world's greatest troll. So, contact info as usual, because that's how I always start the show. I begin the show with contact info and end the show with contact info. And now with the lower third, for YouTubers, it's not really necessary anymore. But for those of you listening on the audio podcast, you can follow me on Twitter at SamW_NGC, hashtag Whitfield Report. You can follow me on Gab at Sam Whitfield. You can follow me on Instagram at SamW_NGC. I don't post a lot of political stuff over there, but you know what? Instagram is a good platform, and it's one of the only ones that doesn't censor me. One of the only ones. Facebook.com/Whitfield Report. So like that page and give us some likes. Very important, folks. Also, if if you like the podcast, please consider subscribing on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. And please rate, comment, and subscribe when on the iTunes podcast. It really helps us out. And as far as contact me, I think that is all we have for right now. One more quick announcement I would like to make, though. I announced this earlier this week on the Unbearables Discord. But for those of you who don't yet know, let me share the screen with some of you. I now have a Patreon page up and running. Yes, I finally took the plunge and got a Patreon. I signed up for this Patreon like 2 years ago, and then I never did anything with it. So you can go to patreon.com/Whitfield, and for just $1 a month to start off, you can help financially support the show and help me build towards the goal of getting more resources to make the show even better. I want to get some better streaming software than I already have. I know OBS is supposed to be like really good, but there is one that's a bit better, so I want to get that. And then who knows, down the line, I might want to take this show on the road, which would be nice. So for just $1 a month, you can help support the show, and I would really appreciate it. So you can go to patreon.com/Whitfield to help support the show, and I'll have exclusive content. I'll have some extra podcasts about 2 or 3 times a week that I do exclusively for patrons. They might not be as long as the standard podcast, but they'll be more personable. And I'm going to be talking with some of my friends from my offline life, from the real world. And so that should be pretty great. So, as I said, patreon.com/Whitfield is where you can go to financially support the show. And thank you to Cannabear for being my first patron. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. So, as far as topics go, I guess this is actually a rant I could kind of go on because lately, folks, there hasn't really been anything in the news all that much, other than the repeat stuff of James Comey and Trump, Russia, and the FBI. And I get that the media is obsessed with Comey and the FBI and all that, and Stormy Daniels. But at this point, folks, it's absurd how ridiculous it's gotten. I mean, that's all we ever see in the news anymore is Trump, Russia. We either see Trump, Russia, Stormy Daniels, James Comey, or stuff on North Korea. That's the other thing we see. And so all of the other big talk shows, all of the other big talk shows out there cover these stories endlessly. Even on the right, they do this. Anytime, like a perfect example of this, James Comey just released his memoir, I guess, this week or last week. And even among conservative talk show hosts, it was a big, a lot of these big-time talk show hosts, they made a big deal out of it. I don't care about it. Do you? I mean, how many... Is anyone here going to buy Comey's memoir? No, 90% of you probably aren't going to. I know I'm not going to. So why has Drudge and the Daily Wire, even a lot of these conservative news sites I respect, why is it like a big thing that Comey released a memoir? He's a bureaucrat and he's a politician. I mean, people who worked in Washington, D.C., they practically start writing their memoirs after they're either, fired, forced out, or retired. And it's just, it's maddening to me that his memoirs, or that really anything Comey-based, is newsworthy. I just don't get it. It's weird. Okay, I'm reading the chat. Weasel says that my volume is a little low, so let me move the mic, let me adjust the mic. Is the volume better, guys, in the stream? Is that any better? I'm doing a bit of I did adjustments before I started the show, and it seems good to me, but I don't like to play back the audio when I'm broadcasting, because otherwise I get like an echo, and that's weird. Okay, Canna says it's good. Jack says it's good. Okay, we're in business. I just checked the chat, and Weasel said it was a little low. That might also be your internet connection if it's slow. So, yeah. Politicizing the FBI is bad, Kimmy. You're absolutely right. It is bad. But why are we even focusing on this? I mean, the whole FBI Comey thing, it's old news. It's repetitive at this point. It's, there's no point in bringing it up. And I hate to say this, because I love Rush Limbaugh. I really do. He's one of the reasons, if not the reason, why I got into podcasting and to talk radio. But even he and Mark Levin, there is nothing to talk about with the FBI anymore. Nothing, I should say, big enough for mainstream America to really care about. I mean, now they're just essentially reviewing the rumor mills of, the whole Comey and Trump and Russia, and yeah. And so at this point, the entire media, both left and right, are throwing stuff at the wall. Which brings me to my point, and this isn't necessarily just about, the Comey thing, but news in general. As I said, the media has no big news. In fact, let me prove this to you. I don't show my show. I don't really show my show prep screen very often, but I do like to check the Drudge Report when I'm prepping for shows. So let's just look at what's at the top of Drudge. Start of the deal: North Korea freezes missile tests. Well, we already knew that they were going to do that. More stuff on North Korea. Let's see. Schumer wants to legalize pot. Not really a good story. I mean, I guess the one notable thing that happened this week was Barbara Bush died, and condolences to her and the condolences to the Bush family and to former President Bush. I guess that people did ask me to talk about that because I guess Roger Stone made some remark about her being a drunk and an alcoholic. And, usually I like Roger Stone, but I mean, I think it's pretty clear to anyone who was, paying attention that clearly is disrespectful. And obviously, I don't condone him saying that about the former first lady. But again, that's non-news essentially. It's a nothing burger. I mean, I'm so. Amy Schumer is apologizing for being white. Yeah, I mean, is anyone really surprised? She's a liberal SJW who talks about her who talks about her vajayjay, and that's the basis of her jokes. Her last Netflix special, I remember, that was released like a year or so ago. It tanked so bad that they literally had to change the Netflix rating system from the 5-star rating system to thumbs up or thumbs down, just because people hated it so much. Now I could be projecting a little bit. I'm sure that that's not the only reason why they changed the rating systems, but I'll tell you this much: it certainly contributed to it. So anyway, I was checking Drudge Report, long story short, and no news stories there. However, last night, ladies and gentlemen, I did find a story last night that I want to share with you. It's not really a story as much of it is an editorial that I ran across last night that someone linked to me. And this is pretty interesting. So I have said for a long time that I think the NFL is going downhill because they've politicized so much of what makes the league great, and they've politicized the game of football, and it's just been really, really sad what they've done. Hey, no Dak Bear, I don't think I've seen you before, but welcome, and thanks for subscribing to the channel, and because of that, you get a wrench. So. Anyway, as I was saying, the NFL has really been going downhill for the last couple of years, and I don't think that that's really a surprise to anyone. However, the SJW politics of the NFL, just when you thought that they couldn't get any more absurd, we now have feminists and quote unquote journalists saying that the NFL should get rid of cheerleaders. Oh yes, let me get my glasses out here so I can read this. And yeah, I know I probably should have had these on at the start of the show, but what the heck? I like to do show prep sometimes in the middle of the show. So, the Chicago Sun-Sentinel. See, I look smart now, or I look smarter. So the Chicago Sun-Sentinel. There was a piece published by Nancy Armour. Oh, why is this reloading? Okay. Okay. Here we are. So this there was a column posted yesterday at 11:43 p.m. Eastern Time by Nancy Armour, I think is how you pronounce her name. And the name of this column is basically get out of here. No place in the NFL for cheerleaders in 2018. Now I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. For those of you watching in the video, you can see the article, although I know my camera is there, but I'll read this off for you. So this comes from the Chicago Sun-Times. Again, the headline is "No Place for Cheerleaders in the NFL in 2018." The Texans aren't even bothering with the pretense. On their website is a photo gallery of the finest from last weekend's cheerleader tryouts, and visitors are encouraged to vote for their favorites. Are these action shots of the women that highlight their athletic abilities or dance skills? Do they include a list of their qualifications? Of course not. They're head shots. Sorry, head and chest shots. Close-up ones at that. They're better to oogle, you know. Cheerleaders from 2 NFL teams have filed gender discrimination complaints in the last month, detailing the demeaning ways in which they were treated, restrictions on what they can and cannot post on social media, rules that prohibit contact with players and put the onus on the woman to avoid it, dress codes. Is it any wonder the underlying premise of the NFL cheerleaders is degrading, presenting women as nothing more than objects to be leered at, with wimpy, suggestive outfits as their quote-unquote uniform? Their only purpose is to titillate, which, by the way, is not true. I'll get into that in just a sec. It has been an appalling message to send, and in this #MeToo era, there's no longer any place for it. NFL cheerleaders need to go. NBA dance squads and NHL ice girls, while we're at it, too. This is not a criticism of cheerleading overall. In some forms, it is a very athletic endeavor, a hybrid of acrobatics and gymnastics. The International Olympic Committee has even recognized cheerleaders as a sport, and it could someday make an appearance in the Olympic Games. Proponents will say that most women who are NFL cheerleaders are professionally trained dancers who just want the opportunity to do what they love. They play an important role in maintaining the team's positive image with promotional appearances and community service, all of which is true. I was always out in the community, said Christian Ann Ware, a former Dolphins cheerleader who has filed a complaint with the Florida Commission on Human Rights, alleging that she was discriminated against for talking our faith and bullied after saying she was a virgin. If you take away the cheerleaders, you take away the glue. You take away the puzzle piece that brings football to life. But that isn't the real reason 26 of the 32 NFL teams have cheerleaders, and everyone knows it. They're there to be eye candy. Blow-up dolls come to life. Why else would the Cowboys mandate that women wear sport bras and hot pants for tryouts? No tank tops or bike shorts, and include personal appearance and figure as criteria. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I could go on, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll link this, I will link this article up in the show notes. But honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I have to ask, who cares? Right? I mean, really, this article basically just goes on to talk about, how NFL cheerleaders are nothing more than, sexualized objects. The other crazy thing, let me just show you real quick this this article again. As I said, I'll link to the full article if you want to read the rest of it, but it's there's not much more to other than just cheerleaders are bad and they're objectified. Okay, the one thing I want to point out here though, folks, and I've looked, comments on this post disabled. Nope, so people can't comment on this in the in the comments section. They've disabled that, and but then of course you have your sponsored content, quote unquote, which is basically like, it's ironic because the Chicago Sun-Times wrote a few pieces about fake news after the Trump election, about how the alt-right and Breitbart and all of these other fake news organizations helped to get Trump elected, and yet they have this sponsored content, which is fake news, at the bottom of their page instead of actual instead of actual comments where people can comment and post. I'm just saying, it seems a little weird to me, not gonna lie. Well, so let me read the comments. What's really ironic is that feminists support female sex workers, but cheerleaders are bad. That's a good point, Jack. And I have a video about this because Paul Joseph Watson actually made a video on this, and I have it. I have the video from Paul Joseph Watson on this. He really covers the subject in a funny way. But before I do that, I just want to kind of preface this with my viewpoint. Like I said, who cares that this columnist is upset with the cheerleading program? In the NFL, I really don't understand it. I mean, it's not like they're forcing. It's not like they're forcing these women to become cheerleaders. They're optional tryouts. And as far as the Miami Dolphins cheerleader who says that she was discriminated against for her faith, welcome to the mod squad, Evil Bear. As far as the Miami Dolphins cheerleaders being discriminated against for their for their faith and whatever, I don't necessarily buy that because I follow one of the Dolphins cheerleaders on Instagram. She actually followed me first. I don't know why, but she did, and she posts biblical quotes on there all the time. So I don't necessarily buy that. Regardless, though, it's as Jack mentioned earlier, these liberals support prostitution openly, but yet NFL cheerleaders are bad. Oh, I see what you did there, Dax. No, I don't follow them that way, but good one. Well, hopefully you didn't literally follow her. That would be a bit creepy, even from me. Yeah. Evil Bear hit the nail on the head. Feminists don't see cheerleaders as empowerment; it's advertisement. Apparently, stripping is empowering because they are freelance. So if NFL cheerleaders offered private dances to fans, problem solved. Oh, don't tempt me, evil bear. But no, here's the other thing. This is kind of my theory, and not even Paul Joseph Watson brought this up in his video, which I'm about to play. But it seems weird to me that not weird, but it's ironic that these feminists love the idea of stripping and prostitution, as long as it's empowering for females, right? For women. As long as it's women expressing their sexuality, and being open about their bodies and, their sex lives and whatever. But as soon as a man, such as myself, says, yeah, NFL cheerleaders, they're kind of hot. Or, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The only reason I watch the Dallas Cowboys is, for the cheerleaders, which, let's admit, after the Cowboys' last couple seasons, the cheerleaders are pretty much the only thing that Dallas has going for them. I have to say the same thing about Denver, though. Our team didn't do that well this year either. So once again, the cheerleaders were really the only things we had going for us. The other thing too is the cheerleaders did not kneel for the flag. So I still support the NFL cheerleaders, but as far as the teams go, I'm still iffy. So it's ridiculous. Here's the thing, though. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because we may think it's absurd that someone is proposing to get rid of the NFL cheerleaders, but the SJWs are vicious. And let me just say this: if they get rid of the NFL cheerleaders and get rid of the dancers and athletics in general, well then that'll just open the bridge up specifically for the NFL to alternative organizations like the XFL, the Extreme Football League. Yeah. Oh, I mean, the other thing is, and I'm glad that at least this journalist did bring this up. A lot of the cheerleaders do community service, and they they participate in the community. A lot of them do USO tours for the soldiers over in Iraq and other places. And this crazy feminist, she didn't mention that at all. But anyway, I digress. This is feminism run amok. Paul Joseph Watson had a very interesting take on this. I think it's interesting, at least. And this was actually how I So I got sent the link by a friend to the Chicago Sun-Times article, but apparently this is also a USA Today article. And I got sent this video of Paul Just Watson. So anyway, here's the video from Paul Just Watson talking about the NFL cheerleaders as well. Let's see. Cut number 1, go.
Cheerleaders. Who doesn't like cheerleaders? Fat, ugly, bitter feminists, obviously, and USA Today columnist Nancy Ormore.
No place in the NFL for cheerleaders in 2018!
So after calling for classic songs to be banned for their offensive lyrics, USA Today now wants cheerleaders gone too. Is anything sacred?
The Houston Texans aren't even bothering with the pretense. On their website is a photo gallery of the finalists from last weekend's cheerleader tryouts, and visitors are encouraged to vote for their favourites. Are these action shots of the women that highlight their athletic ability or dance skills? Do they include a list of their qualifications? Of course not. They're headshots. Sorry, head and chest shots. Close-up ones at that. The better to ogle, you know.
Wait, you mean to tell me that they judge women for a role that specifically requires hotness on the level of their hotness and not their academic qualifications? Because the first thought that pops into my head when I watch this is, gee, I wonder what grade point average this chick got. Newsflash, dummy. Men like to look at hot women. That's never going to change. And no matter how much you try to browbeat, shame and re-educate us, that's always going to be a thing. You can't reverse basic biology through social engineering.
The underlining premise of NFL cheerleaders is degrading, presenting women as nothing more than objects to be leered at with skimpy, suggestive outfits as their uniform. Their only purpose is to titillate.
And you know what? She's got a point. This is just morally wrong. Congress really should pass a law to prevent women from being forced into cheerleading. Oh wait, that wouldn't be necessary because it's completely optional. I mean, cheerleaders just hate cheerleading so much, some of them pay just to audition. Women making their own choices on what to do with their bodies. Wasn't that what Women's Lib was all about? Freedom of choice. You know, before all you resentful harpies hijacked feminism and turned it into a global laughingstock with your harebrained intersectional nonsense.
It's always been an appalling message to send, and in this hashtag #MeToo era, there's no longer any place for it. NFL cheerleaders need to go. NBA dance squads and NHL ice girls while we're at it too.
Right, so in the name of feminism and supporting women, you want to deprive tens of thousands of current and future women of work. You purport to be a champion of women, yet you refer to these women as blow-up dolls come to life, simply because they've chosen to do something that your joyless puritanical ass doesn't approve of. Now let's pause there and have another look at some cheerleaders.
Let's see. Quick interjection here. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. To all the guys who are bummed out that I'm pausing the video, and boy, and what a face shot I chose to pause this video on. But yeah, it's what Paul is saying here is absolutely true. I mean, all of these women have to audition. None of us are forcing women to become cheerleaders in the NFL. In fact, when I was in high school, like, none of the guys were even suggesting to their girlfriends that they should audition for the cheerleading squad. All of the girls in my high school, if anything, they were the ones who were, you know, more than eager to sign up. So, But, anyway, let's see. Cut number 2.
As I was saying, men like to look at hot women. Control-freak, middle-aged, pearl-clutching left-wing journalists who write for USA Today don't like to look at hot women. Did you fail the high school cheer team? Is that what it is? Oh, and by the way, this isn't just about shaking around pom-poms on game day. Many of these cheerleaders do important charity work and community outreach. They're one of the biggest entertainment groups to regularly perform for the United States Armed Forces overseas. These girls literally go into war zones to lift the spirits of the troops. And she admits this in her own article, but then says, man, just ban them anyway. I mean, the NFL is already hemorrhaging viewers because of its tolerance of social justice stupidity. Now you want to take away the cheerleaders? I mean, what can we ban next? Las Vegas showgirls, burlesque dancers, Instagram hotties? Why don't we just ban models altogether? I mean, what other potential career paths for young women can we terminate because we're such good feminists?
But Paul, this is just one newspaper columnist.
No. This is part of a wider purge. F1 grid girls banned, the tennis girl poster banned, beach body ads banned, page 3 girls banned, booth babes banned. We just made hundreds of thousands of women unemployed. Go feminism! Oh, we'll bitch and moan all day about the horror of displaying women who choose to wear what they want, while simultaneously celebrating a modesty culture that forces women to wear bags on their heads as a symbol of women's empowerment. Maybe if we just compelled women to wear certain items of clothing, you'd be all for it, because that's what seems to pass as feminism these days. No, the whole point should be to let women be rocket scientists or Babylon jigglers. Give them equal opportunity and mind your own frigging business.
Feminists are going on and on and on about how it's degrading to women. The women that are actually doing it don't feel degraded, and we're not being given the choice to decide now whether we want to do it or not.
This isn't a feminist crusade, this is a class crusade. This is about a bunch of condescending, sanctimonious, elitist snobs like Nancy or Moore looking down their noses at hard-working girls just trying to make their way in life. Look, not all girls can aspire to be like you, to write laborious, tormented diatribes about how everything that offends your prudish sensibilities should be banned. So embrace real feminism, embrace real equality, and leave these girls the hell alone. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications.
Okay, speaking of notifications, I guess Dax hadn't seen that video because YouTube hasn't been giving him notifications for Paul's channel. So you're welcome, Paul. As I said, folks, it's ridiculous that, that this is what is considered newsworthy now, but it is, and like I said, if the NFL gets rid of cheerleaders officially, I'm out, because I mean at this point with the league kowtowing to political correctness, with Black Lives Matter and kneeling for the flag, and even the Super Bowl halftime show now, as I said, the cheerleaders are the only thing that are keeping me even remotely interested in the league. And, it's... The interesting thing is, I would have at least respected this quote-unquote journalist if she had interviewed some of the cheerleaders. Well, I mean, I guess she did speak to the one, but, okay, talk to more than one cheerleader. Don't just talk to the one that filed a complaint, which, as I said, that's a little suspicious, and there's more than one, and there's more than just that going on there, because, like I said, I've seen these cheerleaders, post, a lot of them are Christian, and a lot of them post Bible quotes, like, on the Facebook pages and Instagram and whatnot. But anyway, so that's that for that show. Now I want to go to Owen Benjamin's show from Friday, because Owen talked about Louis C.K. and how Louis has this whole bit about how he basically hates his kids. And I was going to super chat this to Owen, but I decided to save this dialogue for the show instead. I understand. Well, first of all, I've talked about Louis C.K. a bit on the show before, but let me just reiterate this for those new viewers, because I think the last time I talked about this, I was not yet a bear. I wasn't part of the Unbearables yet. So I have a new audience, and so let me kind of reiterate. I am actually a big fan of Louis C.K.'s comedy. He's in my top 5 comedians. I would say Dennis Miller is my first one. Adam Carolla is Adam Carolla. Yeah, he's a comedian. I would say he's number 2. Number 3 would have to be Dana Carvey. Number 4 would be Owen Benjamin, and number 5 would be Louis. So I understand that Louis is crass, and I understand. I mean, the thing that is kind of awkward now is a lot of his jokes, they still are funny to me. But a lot of them, like about masturbation, they were funny because they were awkward to begin with. But now they're just awkward and not that funny anymore, given what is what. But I've always said that as far as comedy is speaking, I've been a fan of Louis C.K. and if he ever does anything again, which I'm sure he'll be back on the comedy scene, soon. It might take another, year or two, but he'll be back. I guarantee it. I would probably still watch his comedy specials. Now, do I think he's a good person? No. Obviously not with what he did, and Owen was analyzing his jokes about him, basically crapping on his daughter for being 4 and, being a small child. And I understand that people, in the Unbearable chat, that was upsetting to them. And it kind of is. If you take the comedy away from it, it is upsetting. But then I was also reminded of an old bit that Dennis Miller did on his HBO show, where Dennis Miller also talked about parenting, but he talked about it in a much more positive light. And see, that's the other thing. A lot of people nowadays think that in order for something to be funny, it needs to be crass or vulgar and demeaning. And so, while Louis C.K.'s bit on parenting is demeaning, right? That's his whole thing. Parenting is a crappy job. That's the bit. Dennis Miller, on the other hand, and he did this monologue 20 years ago about parenting and how good it is and how it's rewarding. And so I want you guys to look, because this is to me at least, this is a fascinating compare and contrast between the two. Do I have it? Oh yeah, I do. I just need to port it in, to import it into the program real quick. So this is Dennis Miller's rant on parenting. from the mid-90s when he had his show on HBO. And it's also comedy, but this is what I like to call constructive comedy. And this is what Owen does every day. And this is why I admire Owen, and this is a large part why I also admire Dennis. So, clip number 3, go.
Mikey. All right. Well, Mother's Day is this Sunday. You gonna call your moms? You better. I tell you, there's no love sweeter than the love between a mother and a child. Now, I know my wife loves me, but I'm reasonably sure she doesn't love me like she loves our 2 sons. I see the way she looks at them, and I know she's never looked at me that way. You know, it's kind of humbling because you realize at some point, you know, you're just a date that worked out. I don't want to get off on a rant here, but parenting is the most important job on the planet, next to keeping Gary Busey off the nation's highways. And Gary, if you're watching. The reason parenting is becoming increasingly crucial is that we now live in a world that's more fucked up than Peter O'Toole on his birthday. You know, I used to scoff at the art of parenting. When I was single, I was walking down the street one day in New York City. I saw a guy with one baby in a carriage wailing like a prison siren, and another baby master blastered onto his back in a Sapien holster. He was feeding both of them a combination of Cheerios, Wyback crackers, and Juicy Juice from a baggie he had scotch taped to his chest hair. All the while, he was pulling baby wipes out of a belly pack like a coked-up Baccarat dealer going through a 4-deck shoe, and I swore I would never end up like that. Well, you know something? A couple of years later, I did become a parent, and guess what? I'm still not that fucked up. And for that matter, I still don't have any chest hair. But I do have a firm grasp of the fact that the most important job I'll ever do is that of parenting. It's that simple, folks. Kids are the sponge. You are the super soaker. You know, it seems that teachers, friends, and neighbors alike all know where a child's behavior is coming from. But often the parents themselves are in denial. I remember once my kid got in trouble for saying to his teacher, "What time is fucking recess?" And I remember thinking, oh, where in the fuck would he get something like that? But he never did that. You're a good boy, Holden. It was a joke. Be it swearing or loving or hating, we undeniably impact our children. So I propose the following. Make parenting illegal unless you first get a license. It would go something like this. A man who wanted to have a child would have to prove he was responsible, earned enough money for food and clothes for the kid, and would commit enough of his time and wisdom to ensure the rest of us that the kid wouldn't end up in a Texas bell tower with a high-powered rifle and a grudge anytime in the near future. As for the woman, same deal. But she has to also promise not to make him wear her dresses while she hems them, the pins sticking his tender calves, the humiliation slowly destroying his young will to be the world's funniest comedian. Sorry. And then there's the main reason, the definitive reason, the sadly serious reason that you should have to be licensed to have a child. Seems to be a shocking rise in the incidence of child abuse on this planet, and I think it augurs for the end of the world. I understand man's inhumanity to man. Adults are violent, amorphous blobs that careen around the planet. Occasionally they brush up against another individual, and hey, their life must end. All right. I think we all dig that transaction. We're big boys and girls. We dig our own graves, but when did we start bleeding it into the innocents? You've got to promise me, if you're watching me tonight, and you ever get to the point in your life where you're so puzzled, confused, frightened, or broken that you feel the only way out is to either abuse or molest a little kid, well, then you've got to kill yourself. You have got to lean into the strike zone and take one for the team. Listen, in an age where a child can be left unsupervised in a trailer with Beavis and Butthead on the TV and a book of matches within easy reach, a license to procreate starts to make a whole lot of sense. If you're still unconvinced, let me put it to you another way. Cato Kalin is a father. All right? Our society is increasingly made up of people whose parents completely bailed out on them. You want to do something about it? Don't bail out on your kids. How's that for a simple can-do? Rise up out of the mire of your own narcissism and get selfless, for Christ's sake. You want a better world? The seeds for it are right there in your own house. Be good to those tiny humans laying there on the living room floor watching cartoons. Give them a sense of your past, a nurturing present, an optimistic future, and they'll return the favor by giving you the same in spades, my friend. If you can stare between the stars into the blackness of the heavens and say with a smile on your face to whomever or whatever it is that you believe in out there, I'll do anything and everything it takes to be a good parent, then you're ready. Almost. Get yourself a copy of The Lion King. Now you're ready. Of course, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I want to know what you think.
So that is Dennis Miller on parenting. Very sharp contrast from Louis C.K., but very similar, if not identical, to what Owen was saying the other day in his stream. And for the record, as I mentioned, hello Canterbury. I know you've been jumping in and out of streams, but as I've said before, I mean, Dennis is probably my all-time favorite comedian, because he uses comedy to shed light on taboo issues. At least he did when he was on Saturday Night Live, and now, ever since he came out as a conservative 15 some odd years ago, he's been using it to speak truth to power. So I would argue, Canterbury, that Dennis is the reason why Owen exists, and as a comedian, and kind of why independent libertarian comedy exists as a whole. But I always I've seen that clip before over the years, but it didn't really. Rewatching this for the first time in a couple of years, going along with what Owen said about parenting the other day on his stream, it just made this much more profound. I guess what frustrates me is we live in a culture where men are being punished for being attracted to attractive women, i.e. in, like I just read earlier with the whole, the NFL needs to ban cheerleaders. So the left wants to get rid of, the left ultimately wants to get rid of the family unit. But, they want to make it so that men, won't be attracted to women anymore. They're trying to destroy that. And they're trying to destroy the nuclear family too. They really are. And as I said, I realized that what Louis said, that was a bit that he did, and I have to be honest, even though I'm a fan of his, that was always a bit that I had problems with. That was one bit that always bothered me. Let's see. In the chat, let's see. Kenna, you're saying I'm quieter than the clip I showed. Interesting. Well, I could also try adjusting the the gain on my mic. I need to play around with the mic settings on this. Anyway, so I just thought that was interesting. Considering that parenting has been a big topic among the unbearables. Now, I know that it's 10 o'clock and that usually I would end my show right about now, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about guns. And I saw this interesting, I actually listened to an interesting Joe Rogan podcast today with a guy by the name of Colion Noir. And I'd seen this guy on Twitter before, but I hadn't really checked him out until I heard him on Joe Rogan. But he's an African American NRA spokesperson, and he does a show for NRA TV, and he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. I think it was on either Wednesday or Thursday. And they were talking about the controversy of guns and why the left is and why the anti-gun crowd is so hell-bent on getting rid of guns. And we also let's see. Well, Dax, when I heard him, he pronounced it Colion instead of Collins. So I don't know. Yeah, Colion, I guess. Yeah. But anyway, he and Rogan were talking about the problem with guns in this country, and one of the things that he brought up more towards the end of the interview was that the economics plays a big part of this. That the reason why there's so much gun violence in inner cities is because economically there isn't as much opportunity for black people in the inner cities, and that's because of big government and big liberal policies. So I thought this clip was interesting. I'm going to play part of it and then comment as we go along. This interview is very interesting, and I do recommend that you guys... That definitely is one Joe Rogan podcast that I would definitely recommend watching when you get the chance. Let's see. So here's Colin Noir talking about Chicago's gun violence epidemic on the Joe Rogan podcast. I found this fascinating. So, clip number 4, go.
What do you think can be done to stop this stuff? Have you thought about it?
Yeah, I think about it all the time. It's a harder question for me to ask than to come up with ways of why we don't need gun control.
Right.
Because that's
yeah.
It's hard.
I think so too.
Especially when I'm taking gun control off the table, because people are always saying, you guys don't want to move 1 inch. Well, I was like, yeah, because we've been moving an inch for the last 20, 30 years.
Also, the problem is it's a fucked up argument, because the people that are holding the guns are not necessarily the people that are doing these things. Mm-hmm. You're trying to attack the vast majority of gun owners are not committing crimes with their guns.
They're not. So when I think about what can we do to stop different types of shooting, for instance, let's start with the type of shootings that happen the most.
Right.
Gang violence.
Right.
So if you look at the statistics, you think, oh my gosh, America's a war zone. Right? 30,000 people a year die, and then the vast majority of it that is remaining as actual homicides is gang violence. So then we have a gang problem. We don't have a gang problem in this country. We have a socioeconomic problem in very specific areas in this country. right? Because I just came from Southside Chicago, where I started in Hyde Park, where Obama used to live, and then drove a few minutes into an area that looked like a bomb went off. They don't have the violence in Hyde Park that they had in that area. Why? They had the same access to illegal guns. They don't have the same problem because there's a difference in economics. And no one wants to address that.
Right.
If I'm a kid growing up in that neighborhood and I'm going to a school that's shitty, right? They don't give a damn about me. I lucked up and was able to go to good schools, right? I went to schools where my teachers cared. I went to schools where teachers pushed me when I was slacking off. You know, I had the ability to take out loans to go to a good law school. You know, I had those abilities. If I'm a kid growing up in this environment and I can't find refuge in my school, I can't find refuge at home because my mom's working 3 or 4 or 5 jobs, so she's never there. Where am I going to go find where am I going to find that parental influence? I'm going to find.
One thing I want to mention, this is a very interesting point, but again, this ties back to the left trying to destroy the nuclear family, ladies and gentlemen. Because in the black community, and this doesn't really tie into the clip, but I'm thinking of this now, so I'm just going to go with it. The black community, post the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it did a lot of wonderful things, but once the feminist movement, once the second wave and third wave feminist movement became a big thing, black fathers started becoming absentee fathers, and we started to notice that the African American community, that the fathers were absent at home, and that fathers were either being locked up or, in jail, or, in a lot of cases, dads weren't even meeting their kids. And so these women have had, 3, 4, 5, 6 or more kids on welfare. And so, I agree with Colin, it is economic in nature, but it's also heavily revolved around the lack of a father figure in a nuclear family while this gun violence is happening. And even with all these shooters, with all these mass shootings, like in the school like at Parkland, and with Columbine, and with the James Foley guy in Aurora, Colorado, right? None of these guys, from what I remember, well, they were all on psychotropic antidepressant drugs to begin with, but a lot of these young men also had no father figures and no stable family life to really, give them a sense of purpose in life either. So it's interesting because we've been talking about, the theme of this show tonight has kind of been about destroying the family, right? If you keep men from being attracted to women, with the whole NFL cheerleader thing, then they won't want to get a family. And if you stop that, then they won't procreate. And if you break off the father from the families that already do have kids, well, then those kids are more likely to become criminals, and so on and so forth. So I just I had to make that point real quick. Colin is making some great points, and I do want to finish this clip up before we end the show. I realize we're going a little over on time, so even though we started late. But thanks for bearing with me.
Find on the streets. So now I'm on the streets being able to make money. What am I going to do for money? Well, then there's their narco economy, very conveniently, right there for me, right? Sell drugs. So now I'm staying on the corner selling drugs. I got to protect my product. right? If I don't, someone's going to take it from me. So what do? I get a gun, and I carry a gun. Now I'm stuck in a situation. Now I'm just stuck in this violent loop, right? That feeds on itself. And so now I'm stuck defending myself against the guy who's shooting at me, trying to take my stuff, and I'm shooting back at him. Maybe not because I'm trying to take his stuff, but because he's trying to take mine, right? So that's where you get that violence that comes from those particular areas. Now, if we would have sat back and said, okay, we have hyper-concentrated areas in this country. This isn't widespread. It's hyper-concentrated communities in this country that are dealing with this, that are also the result of the vast majority of our gun violence. If we sat back and thought about it from a social economic standpoint, how do we fix this? What do we do? How do we present opportunity? I'm not saying go in there and just hand out stuff, but how do we fix this from the standpoint of improving our schools? How is it I can drive 5 minutes one direction and have a school that has everything you can name, and then drive in the opposite direction? The school can barely have textbooks to give to their kids. Think about that.
Yeah.
So why aren't we focusing our energy on building that up versus talking about, oh, we need to get the guns off the streets? You did that. You have that in Chicago. You have every gun law imaginable in Chicago. But yet Southside Chicago still looks the way that it does, still has the violence that it does, right? So if we provide, when you give people something to lose or to live for, they don't throw away life so easily. Plain and simple. So if my socioeconomic status is in the dirt, I don't have a problem looking at another kid down the street and shooting at him and taking his life. I don't have anything. I don't have anything to lose. But if we would focus our attention in fixing that, same way we talk about the mental health issue with respect to mass shootings and school shootings, we wouldn't have to worry about the guns because we wouldn't have people wanting to do those things or have the capability to do those things, right? So then that deals with that vast majority of the violence that we have there, focusing that energy in fixing those communities.
I agree with you 100%. And we've talked about this many, many times in the show, that I think that if you wanted to make America a better place, one of the best ways to do it is to make it easier for someone to succeed. Make it easy and stop pretending that it's a level playing field.
Yeah, 'cause
I
it's
didn't
not.
grow up in a level playing field.
No.
I got lucky.
I did
You
too.
got lucky. A lot of
Absolutely.
people did. And if you go to somewhere like the South Side of Chicago and you don't realize that you got lucky, you're blind.
Yeah.
If you want to, what's the best way to make America stronger? Less losers, less people who lose.
Yeah.
How is that? Well, give them more of a chance.
Yes.
Give them more of an opportunity and give them guidance-ship, community centers, clean up the streets, fix buildings. But that's a lot of fucking money that we're spending right now in Afghanistan and Iraq and building
then-
missiles and all kinds of crazy shit that we're not putting any money into that.
But then who do we hold accountable? So for instance,
do we? Right.
Like if we talk about the inner cities, for instance, they've been democratically run for ages now. The local leadership there is Democratic.
Right, but there's no money. The problem is there's
Well,
no
the money's
money.
going somewhere.
Yeah.
Look at Chicago.
It's just not enough. I mean, the money's going into the areas where people are wealthy, and that's what they're
True.
supporting. They're not supporting these impoverished areas. And
And you know what? You're absolutely right. So if that's the case, and we all understand that, and you know that, stop selling this bullshit about gun control then.
well, let's just
say
talk,
that.
That's just one aspect.
Oh,
of
no,
gun
I was
control,
moving
and
to
agree
the
with
next
you.
one, yeah.
I agree with you there. So in that sense, when it comes to gun violence, it's very complex. When it comes to gang violence, it's very complex. And I agree with you that there's no other way to stop that than to fix the inner cities where people are just in that cycle of constant poverty and crime, and it's all they see around them, so it becomes normalized.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's I mean, everything that Colin and Joe said there is spot on, and man, I have to say, really up until this year, I wasn't a big fan of Joe Rogan, but the more and more I listen to him, I am becoming a fan. Well, you know, honestly, Joe Rogan and Steven Crowder is how I found out about Owen. So, you know, in a way, I'm thankful, you know, to this man on screen right here, Joe Rogan, because had I not watched that podcast where he and Kurt were both on, I would have never discovered The Unbearables, and I would never be here chatting with all of you wonderful folks. So, thank you, Joe Rogan. But, yeah, everything Colin said here. I mean, the problem is it's economics and it's problems with the lack of a nuclear family, and it's also a problem with pop culture too, as Dax pointed out. Dax made a couple of good comments, which I want to read off in the chat. And if folks, I do want to know what you think. So if you have any comments that you would like me to read on air, I am looking at the chat now. Dax brought up a point which I think is awesome. He said, the left will not allow us to criticize the culture problem. I'm convinced that that's why so many people go to race. They already call you Nazi if you talk about the problem with black culture. I shouldn't call it black culture. The gangster culture is what I mean. No, I mean I knew what you meant, Dax. I mean, I think a lot of people do. It's so multifaceted. Because we have a problem with the lack of a nuclear family in the black community, right? And I just mentioned the whole thing with lack of fathers, and that's a huge problem. We also have a problem with economics as well, with there being less economic opportunities in poor black areas, which are run by Democrats mostly, but I digress. But no, that seriously is a big part of it. And then I know that Neri, John, if you're watching this, I know this is gonna absolutely bust your balls, boy. But I gotta say, the hip hop culture and the rap culture, a lot of it I get some of it, okay? And I would be a hypocrite if I said I didn't every once in a while I do. I don't know if any of you can see this, but behind me on the bench, I have a earphone case, and in that case is a pair of like $150 headphones, and every once in a while I'll put those on, and well, I listen to all types of music, but every once in a while I'll put on NWA, and so I do listen to rap, and I don't think rap inherently is bad itself, but I do think that this culture that has taken a hold of Black America is hey John, thanks for showing up. I can officially wrench you now that you're here. It's about time. So great. Yeah, John tunes in right as I'm about to shit on hip hop. No, I think the medium of hip hop is great itself, but I'm honestly not a big fan of the fact that so much of this gangster rap is just that, gangster rap. That it's always, portraying black people as, pimps, thugs, and, drug addicts. Same thing with Hollywood and in movies. Like a lot of movies, a lot of black-centered movies, they make fun of black people even. I was actually talking to one of the students at my college who is going to my school for the film program. And I go to a local community college. I know, so, it's not a big university, but still, my school has a film program. And I was talking to one of the students there once, who is a young black man, and he said that one of the reasons why he's going into filmmaking, why he wants to become a filmmaker, is because he wants to change the narrative of black people in entertainment, because it's morally bankrupt. And Canterbury hit the nail on the head. I mean, a lot of this stuff with, gangster rap glorifies a negative culture and a negative stereotype. Same with like a lot of these movies, like the Tyler Perry movies, right, where he dresses up as Medea, the fat black chick, the fat grandmother. Like, I get that that's his bit, but that in and of itself it's very racist. In fact, it's even more so racist than Owen's that person of color stole my bike. I would actually argue that that person of color stole my bike joke that Owen makes, I would say that that's actually less racist than what Tyler Perry does with the Medea character. The Medea character, if you've actually ever looked at it, like, I'm a white guy, and the first time I saw that, I was offended, because it's blackface, but because Tyler Perry does himself and he's black, like, that's supposed to be okay. And I'm just saying, it's negative stereotypes like that in pop culture, and then we wonder why so many black people are influenced by negative culture. Politics is downstream from culture, so it's the lack of economics, it's the lack of father figures, and it's rotten pop culture. So guns aren't the problem. So, let's see. Let me read some of the comments. Canterbury wanted me to read this comment from earlier. Read this. I'm gay. Oh, so Canada, if you're gay, then does that mean if you're gay, does that mean Amethyst is free then? That's what it must that's what it must mean. Either that or you're attracted to me, which sorry dude, I'm only attracted to women. But let's see. No, in all seriousness, I'm happy for you guys, and do like Canada does, and find yourself a good woman. Okay. In the chat, we Dax brought up the point that the black family was intact, and now they blame on Republicans. Yeah, well, also, and I actually met Larry Elder a year ago. He came here to Florida with Michael Medved for a speech, and I actually got to meet him once. I can't pull the photo up right now, but I'll post it in the Unbearables Discord. But long story short, Larry Elder also brought up the fact to me personally that feminism really ruined the black family, because even though it said that women are strong and independent, it really didn't give African American women the tools they needed to succeed. See, that's the other thing with feminism. Feminism tells women, especially African American women, that they can succeed without men, but it never really goes, it never goes into the extra step of actually telling women how to succeed. It says, feminists just love to say, oh, you can be more successful without a man, but see ya. And that's that. Okay. Yeah. 5 watching, 10 likes. Yeah, like I can bear share. Neri sucks. That comes from DJ Neri. Yeah, we all know that that's your alt account, John. So what? You're saying you suck yourself? So, but let's see. Hey, just there. Welcome to the program. You're catching the end of my show, Jester Bear. So, I apologize. We've just been talking about all manner of things. Also, I'm a little bummed out that Neri is going to be super bummed out when he finds out that he missed an earlier segment where I was playing videos of hot NFL cheerleaders when I was talking about feminists wanting to get rid of cheerleaders in the NFL. I think Canna might have missed that too. So I apologize. So also thank you, Canna Bear. Thank you for the compliment on my shirt. Yeah, I got it for it was an Easter present from my mom. So thank you for the compliment. Yeah, it's nice. So, well, for having nothing to talk about in the news, we sure covered a lot of ground. So, yeah, that segment with Colin Noir was fascinating. I really liked him, and I really liked Joe Rogan. Now, Canterbury, you were saying something to me the other night about Joe Rogan starting to come over more towards the right. I agree with you. Well, too late, Justaberry. You've already got a wrench. So, oh yeah, Dax. Thanks for reminding me about Candace Owens. I knew I had this in the stack of stuff to get to. Thank you for reminding me. I would have ended the show and then remembered it immediately afterwards. So I tweeted this out earlier today, and by the way, you can find all my social media links down below. But let's go to my Twitter. I thought that this was I actually thought this was kind of funny. Twitter was freaking out over the fact that well, let me just read this Twitter moment for you. Let me read my tweet because this is great. So I tweeted this out earlier this afternoon. So Candace Owens praised Kanye West, and I guess Kanye in return actually said that he admired Candace Owens as well. And leftist Twitter was freaking out about this all afternoon, right? Let me see if moments actually work on the browser. So, yeah. Let's see. While fans of Owens are expressing their support for Kanye's statement, others are upset that this appears to be an endorsement for the far-right personality. I love how they have termed Candace Owens as like a far-right, alt-right / alt-right personality. Okay? Candace Owens is simply a conservative. But because she's black and a conservative, Twitter and Jack, the soy boy that he is, oh, she's an extremist. She's a radical. So let me go through the moment. So let's see. So Kanye tweeted out 12 hours ago, "I like the way Candace Owens thinks. Only free thinkers." Candace Owens responds, "I'm freaking out. Kanye West, please take a meeting with me. I tell every single person that I've been inspired to do was written in your music. I am my own biggest fan because you made it okay. I need you to help wake up the black community." Roseanne Barr Roseanne Barr has also been killing it too. Let's see. Did Kanye just really? Okay, now here come the libs. Did Kanye just really speak positively about Candace Owens? Hell just froze over. Let's see. So it actually looks like there are some conservative tweets on here, or some people with common sense, so that's good at least. Oh, here's the first lib. And by the way, I love that Caleb Karma is whiter than I am. Candace Owens is a far right media personality who got famous by appearing on the conspiracy site InfoWars, calling herself a red pill black, a term popularized on the alt-right men's right message boards. It is basically an antonym for woke. Yeah, here's the thing. The actual alt-right, and I've written endless amount of columns on this, the alt-right is like less than 1%. They're not even conservatives, they're neo-Nazis. So, let's see. AK Red Pill Black, Communications of Far Right Campus, Oregon, Turning Point USA. See, all of the people who are criticizing Candace Owens, this is hysterical. All except for one of them is, all except for one of these libs I can think of is, they're all white liberals. They're all white liberals. This would be hysterical if it weren't so sad. Now, to be honest, folks, I've never been like a huge Candace Owens. I've never been a huge Kanye West fan. But hey, he's a major He's a major influence in the black community. And based on some of the things that he said, like, I remember at the end of 2016 at one of his concerts, he said that he voted for Trump, which got boos from the Black Lives Matter crowd. I mean, the fact now that he's also liking Candace Owens is also a big thing. So who knows? So what I tweeted out, to go back to my tweet, which I never fully read, so I'm sorry about that. I'll go back to that. So what I wrote in response to this tweet, and it's true, Twitter's disingenuous attempt to paint real Candace O as a far-right personality is them trying to call her an extremist. The far left is terrified that they're losing Kanye West, and all I can say is welcome Kanye. God, freedom, legacy, #unbearables. And it's true. The black community, see, there are black conservatives like Thomas Sowell and like Colin Noir and like Herman Cain, and like Bo Snerdley, who is Rush Limbaugh's producer, but the left is terrified of them. And so they must be Uncle Toms, or they must be radicals of some kind. So we have to marginalize them and make them, horrible, horrible people. But if Kanye comes over to the conservative side of the spectrum, the left is done in a big way. Can I show the original video that Kanye saw before tweeting that? I mean, I could. I guess I could, Dax. I wouldn't be able to play it in the. I wouldn't be able to play it in my app that I have doing the program. I would have to download it and whatnot. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have enough bandwidth on my computer to stream this and download videos at the same time. But maybe I'll send me a reminder in the Bear Discord, and perhaps I'll download it for next week's podcast. Or if I do like a live stream in the middle of the week, which I probably do, I'll do it then. But that just about covers everything for the show. I guess the moral of the story is NFL cheerleaders are hot. Have a family. The nuclear family is good. Louis C.K. is funny, but he's an immoral character. Positive comedy by Dennis Miller is always good, and comedy can be positive and pro-family as well. The Call Noir is spot on, and the fact that the black community does not have a gun problem, they have an economic problem, and Kanye should be coming over to the right pretty soon here. At least I hope he does. Okay, well, folks, with that in mind, I do want to wrap up the show. Before we do, though, I want to mention a few things. As I always try and mention, you can follow me on Twitter at @somebody_NDC, hashtag WA Radio, hashtag Whitfield Report. You can follow me on Gab at Sam Whitfield. You can follow me on Instagram at samw_NDC. You can visit my website at thesamwhitfield.com, facebook.com/Whitfield Report. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever else you get your podcast from by searching the Whitfield Report. And you can also go to anchor.fm/Whitfield Report. That's the direct page for the podcast. And one other thing I wanted to mention too, I now have a Patreon page. I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, but I'll mention it again. I just launched a Patreon page for the show as well. So if you would like to support the show for less than $1 a month, you can. Please go to patreon.com/Whitfield, become a patron, and I'm going to do 3 extra podcasts per week. They'll probably be shorter, like around 15 to 20 minutes, as opposed to a full hour. And then there are different tiers that you can subscribe at. Once we get more patrons too, folks, I will be posting more content. I only have one post right now, but that's because I haven't fully gotten invested in Patreon yet, but I am working on it. So please go to patreon.com/Whitfield. Support the show financially if you can. If not, folks, please, as always, rate, comment, and subscribe, and like this video. Be sure to share on your social media platforms. Thanks to Jester Bear for subscribing. Always appreciate it. like, hike, and bear share. Also, folks, like I said, please subscribe on iTunes and leave a review there as well. That definitely helps me out too, majorly. Alright, folks, that just about does it. It's almost about 10:45, and so I'm going to wrap the show up. From all of us here at NGC TV and from the Unbearables, good night. God bless, and God save this great nation. I'll see you next week. And good night, ladies and gentlemen. God bless.